Hello and welcome everybody. My name's Niraj. I'm the host of the 2023 Breathwork Summit and also the founder of Soma Breath. And I want to introduce everybody to a very special guest, my buddy, Sage Raider. So welcome, Sage.
Thank you, Niraj. It's good to be here.
Yes. So before we begin, we're just going to do the customary, taking a little breath in through the nose, in, hold, squeeze all the muscles in your body, and just let go. Oh, good feelings. That's right. Oh, yeah. It's good to be back. Yes. All right, Sage. So I just want to introduce you to the crew who's tuning in right now. So Sage Raider is a breath artist, a biohacking pioneer, and the creator of Breath Church. I love that. And Neuroacrobatics, which is actually a system of breath and brain games designed to create rapid dynamic shifts in consciousness that show up in the real world in real time. He has worked with some of the world's most elite performers, as well as folks with systems that have been destroyed by years of severe acute and chronic pain and opioids. That's a very important subject I'm sure we're going to dig deep into, helping them achieve and sustain balance under fire. Wow. What an amazing background you got, brother.
Thank you,
let me ask you a bit about that, actually. So how did you get into this field of breathwork?
Yeah, thanks. I didn't get, I'll tell you why I didn't get in. I didn't get in to find my highest truth. I was pushing 320 pounds in Appalachia. I was opioid dependent. And everyone had told me basically just give up. Take your pills, take your prosthetics, pills, powders, potions, lotions, and procedures, I like to call it. And that's where I was, stuck in that system and quote unquote hopeless. And a doctor shared with me some very basic Kriya breath. And I was so blown away that I spent the next 2 years running around to yoga studios going, hey, can you teach me something about breath? Teach me. And they were like, well, what do you want to know? I was like, well, if I knew that, I'd be teaching myself. Can you show me how to experience this incredible sensation in my body and apply it when my need for pain meds is so extensive? I mean, just quick aside, I had 3 millimeters of travel between C5, C6, pinching my spinal column in the face. And I was doing hot yoga and CrossFit. So I was finding just blinding sensation, but I knew if I didn't do this, I wasn't going to stay alive. So to heal was actually more painful than any of the original injuries. And so I began this very challenging, very sensation-filled thing and had to very quickly find a way to think and breathe. And all I had was an ujjayi in and out. And I figured out, and this was all I did for about a year and a half, was I got to a minute in, a minute out, which is a really long cycle. And I was able to just lay there and assign images to ujjayi in and out. Now, what I know now was that may or may not have been the best physiologically for me, but psychologically, it gave me a tool to handle what would otherwise have driven me probably to some very dark ends. And I was able to find some joy and add some thoughts to that one single simple breath, and boom, there I was. That was my genesis into breathwork. And I was like, now I got to find somebody to teach me how to do more and different. And anyway, that was the start, man.
That's super interesting. But you just said that you did a minute in and a minute out with ujjayi breath. That's phenomenal. How long did it take you to get to that sort of breath retention times?
I was about 6 months to a year, but I had nowhere to go. I was in so much pain, I was unable to move. I had all the time in the world. I was on workers' compensation. They valued me at approximately 47 cents a day. And if I did anything in the US, if you do anything other than sit and rot, they send out investigators to make sure you're not doing anything because you're not supposed to be working. Wow. And so I was actually followed to and from yoga they would give me the investigator's report on what I'd been doing. And so I realized I was under observation. The system was watching, and this was a golden opportunity to show everyone in the system that I dealt with, from doctors to pharmacists and all of the other patients across the board, that this breath-brain thing with this other yoga thing and this meditation thing could actually help the unsurvivable turn into a playground of sorts.
Wow, that's super interesting. And actually, we talk a lot in Summer Breath about the importance of slow breathing, like really
Mm.
slow breathing. And you were getting it to a 2 minute breath. That's pretty incredible.
I
Like,
can't do that now, for the record. Like
right.
life kicked in
Yeah.
and very difficult to do that. But in that place of pain, when you had nothing else to do,
Mm.
you can do some really extraordinary things from the bottom. I say from the bottom of the exhale, the bottom of the trench at the bottom of the ocean. You know, you get to the bottom of the ocean, then there's the Mariana Trench. That's even deeper. You get to the bottom of that, and occasionally you find yourself plowing new trenches with your face at the bottom of the Mariana Trench.
Incredible.
How do you think and breathe then? Where's the light come out of the dark then? New
Mm.
way to think and breathe. And I think I've decoded some really cool stuff to just break it down, because life keeps lifing and it compound. I don't want to say the word fracture. We're going to talk about metaphor, but it compounds. So a
Mm.
thing becomes a bigger thing very quickly, and minors become majors in this new world. And
Correct.
so really meeting it with a compound breath, brain, body solution is I think
Amazing.
my joy.
Well, let's actually dig deep into this further then, because
Yeah.
I'm really glad you turned it around and you're doing loads of great high impact stuff in the world. So you actually are a musician, which I love, because putting music to these techniques makes it so much more powerful. And you're actually into writing poetry, right? And creating a language of the breath using poetry. So do you want to tell me a little bit about that, how you're doing that?
Yeah, actually. So I started as a poet. I wanted to be taken quite seriously. People kept laughing. I'd get up. I started at the Nuyorican Poets Cafe, and I was like there's a couple white dudes that were in there. And I was angrier than everybody else at the injustice of the straight white male. And they were like, all right, you can stay, white guy, whatever. So I started in a very, very like sincere and earnest way to use words to try and shape my world and my culture. What I didn't realize was I was more effective at it than I knew. And much of the art I created ended up being imitated in life after the fact. And now, as spiritual students, we all know, we're like, duh. And since art is the highest form of magic, in all of my studies, making art from a place of pain with people that transforms into beauty is the ultimate goal. It's the sort of highest calling of the artist, to bring something transcendent from a place of mundane. And I discovered along the way, talking to a bunch of people smarter than me, that breath is a metaphor for life. And as the master metaphor, I've discovered what that means is we understand. A metaphor is something that allows us to understand something in terms of something else. So we understand the abstract in terms of the concrete, the transcendent in terms of the ordinary and mundane, the experiential, the experienceable. I can experience this, so I can try and describe this other thing out here that's really out there in terms of this other thing that we all commonly understand. So I started to look at the use of metaphor, use of poetry, use of my own words and metaphors. And then as a breath practitioner, you start to look at cues and images and things that we create while people are breathing. So I started to look at the poetry of breath, but then I started to look at the poetry of images while people were breathing. The biggest criticism I get with neuroacrobatics is, it's not breath work. And I'm like, you're right. You're stepping all over the breath. You talk too much. You're right, and you're right. I don't just let the breath do its thing. I mean, I do. The breath will do its thing no matter what I say or do. But the poetry of it all is that if we pick a better class of metaphor, a better class of image, the body will very quickly grab it, because poetry and metaphor are the language of the breath, the brain, and the body. And the body's language is psychology. So since physiology is fundamentally psychological, I started to play with poetry and poetics. And then you add the music and the beats, and Stan Groff did this early on. Heavy tribal rhythm with a beautiful melody. Some people are going to lock into that tribal rhythm and beat. Some are going to lock into this beautiful transcendent sound Some are going to feel both. And so I've started creating, much like yourself, some very cool polyrhythmic tribal stuff. And then you understand that sacred geometry is represented in rhythm. And so we produce geometric shapes in the fields of people, to be weird and woo about it. You can do that on the Shift Network. I'm creating sacred geometry in the fields of other humans, portals to the transcendent, by using rhythm, which is the metaphor for the universe, rhythmic balanced interchange, pulses of on and off, in and out. So I'm using poetry to decode truths in the universe and then putting it into art, rhythm, and then tone, frequency. You know this, each note represents a different number of cycles per second between up and down. That same cycles per second of up and down is a representation of the quantum, whereby the wave becomes the particle, a fluctuation in the field so intense that it pops and appears in perfect stillness. So these are metaphorical, metaphysical, grand ideas. You bring them down into music production, boom, it's boogie down. And the person doing the breathing is disconnected from this need to go through a deep and traumatic healing process and unfeel and refeel. I just swap, you hot swap while they're in the zone, a shitty metaphor for a not shitty metaphor, then help them get out of the field, stay in the body, keep them out of the astral, keep them in their inner world, hot swap the sensation, bring them out. They don't remember or know. Their conscious mind is disengaged. The metaphor is in their system. You give them some follow-up, little games, little practices. Hey, here's some beats I made just for you. Here's a note that sounded good. Play with that. And pretty soon, art out of people replaces this desperate, overly sincere, dogged, super exclusive spiritual journey of healing that a lot of us make money on. So we don't want them too healed. We want them healed enough, but we don't want them to. We want them to come back for the next thing. You know, don't be so healed you never come back. So I am trying to break all the molds, even for myself, and create a system that the whole world can use. And then come back and teach me, show me where I'm not doing it right. Show me where I'm not getting it, because I sure need some help. Thanks for listening, Niraj.
That's awesome, man. Well, I reckon that's a good segue for you to give us a little taste of your magic.
So let's do this. Here's a game. I like to play with blowholes and balloons. This all credit where credit's due. This comes from Systema, and it's all over the East.
For those of you who's not, probably most people have never heard of Systema. So do you want to just explain what that is?
That's a good point. Thanks. Systema is a, system of breathing based on the Russian Orthodox mystics. And so the mystics would go up into the mountains and hew these monasteries, and they would think and breathe. And they would breathe in a way that is distinctly, as far east as Russia is, it's an Eastern culture. But they practice their faith in the West, and this is something that I've been looking for as a way to ground my faith down. In the West, an Eastern practice of Western Judeo-Christian Greco-Roman morals and values. Well, the Russian mystics have a pretty amazing system of breathing. And there's this guy, Mikhail Ryabko, and he is credited with having studied that faith-based metaphysic of breath and turned it into something that they can use in a special forces situation. So that's what I love. If I can apply a spiritual principle in an environment in which there is nothing but extremity and the risks are quite high, which in healing work is really what we do. We're responsible for the lives and well-being of people every time we step into the field of breath. So I liked that live fire pressure tested idea. So I have spent an enormous amount of time just on the very superficial surface of Systema, which is what that system's called. And I'm such a neophyte in that system. I'm not claiming any kind of practitioner expertise, but they have principles so beautiful, and they have exercises so remarkable to me for chronic pain that I was able to apply them and then ground them down in a Judeo-Christian Greco-Roman Western way on a Tuesday when stuck in traffic with what pain feels like a sack of screaming babies, stapled to my neck. And I need to think and breathe then. These folks in the Russian system, it's not just all of Russia. I've been told they're not all, it's one form of one style, but it's unique to their special operations. So they have you breathe in and out of places. And so I started messing with that and opening a blowhole over the heart and using the imagination. That's what we're going to do today. So we're just going to breathe and imagine. And we're not going to do it in a relaxed way. We're going to do it with some music that's based around hip hop, some stuff we'd like to hear at a cocktail party. Maybe shake your rump. We're going to move a little. We're going to get back and forth. Because I like to practice my spirituality, and if I'm going to call it healing, my healing in a way that's contiguous with the rest of my life. I don't want to stop and go be sacred, get outside, and then some jackhole pulls in front of me in traffic, and now I'm secular AF. So we're just going to practice listening to some hip hop, breathing through the heart space, through an imaginary blowhole in a balloon, in the nose, out the mouth. So for those of you breath ninjas, that's circular connected breathing in a very subtle way. No, my system is one of subtlety. So it's a little more like picking up a tissue and then. So that's the circular connection. And the drop, the exhale, is where the magic happens. So we're really picking up. And we're almost just flicking the gills. So if you want to play with gills in this exercise and you want to play with the blowhole, okay, get into the subtlety. And I'll give a little cues, but it's only a 4-minute piece. So there's not a lot of time for me to talk over it. That's the exercise. Ready? Let's get to it.
Let's do it. All right.
This one's called Dope Frog. So begin to breathe in through the nose and out the mouth, just like we said. Take a couple of those. Begin to breathe and imagine that you can open up a dolphin-like blowhole over your heart. That's all we're doing. Begin to breathe in and out through that dolphin-like blowhole. And notice the taste, texture, sight, sound, smell, and sensation. Heart space. Subtle. Those of you who know how can open up some gills. Imagine that you've got gills between your ribs, that intercostal space. And because you're in control of what you breathe in and out of your body, I'd like you to assign a thought, a feeling that you want to have in your body for the rest of the day. And in and out through that dolphin-like blowhole over your heart, flicking your gills just a little bit on the exhale, resting in sufficiency. Begin to breathe in what you want to feel, who you want to be. Is it bravery? Is it love? Is it gratitude? And begin to watch and notice the taste, texture, sight, sound, smell, and sensation of that thing you want, entering and exiting the body. In and out through the heart space. And here comes the breakdown. Little free-form breathe. Can you sink down a little more? Resting in sufficiency. Taking in only the air you need to flick your gills. Notice the expansion of the heart as the light comes in. Observing the light. Coming in on the exhale like a bellows. And exiting gently on the inhale like a whisper. the nose and drop it. Through the dolphin-like blowhole over your heart. Flicking your gills just a little more until you feel a certain silly sense of something trickling through your light pipes, that nervous system. And now sealing your lips, leaving the dolphin-like blowhole over your heart, flicking your gills on the exhale and breathing in through the nose, out through the nose. Gentle surf up and down, letting the breath breathe you. And when you're ready, very slowly, very gently, fluttering the eyelids open, very delicately, like butterfly wings. Letting your gaze be soft and wide, your heart be open and full. Letting the light inside that you've brought in shine through. Like a flashlight of love or gratitude or whatever you breathed in for the rest of the day. Just a game. Quick exercise. 1 fish, 2 fish, red fish, blue fish. Listen to this, breathe like this, and imagine that.
Nice. Thank you, Sage, for that. Very chilled and elevated at the same time. So I'll attempt to carry on with the rest of the interview. So tell me more about neuroacrobatics. I assume this has got nothing to do with Cirque du Soleil or the circus.
No, it doesn't.
Something you do in the business environment. So tell me more about that.
It's funny, though. It should be. I mean, that's sort of an eventual vision that I have. And it started out as mind games for chronic pain. How do I think and breathe while I'm laying flat with nothing to do all day, but experience my sensation and or distract myself and or take more pills till the pills don't work anymore and then keep taking them, and we know that story. So I created it to work when you need it most. And in the professional environment, the ability to identify what's going on in your body and in your outer world. So I teach 4 dimensions of awareness, and I help people matrix life very quickly, assess the impact life is having on their system. And without having to go to shapes and numbers or all of the fancy, I've got to breathe in for how many, how many, and then breathe out for how, without that, identify the impact it's having in my system by the metaphor I'm using, and very quickly swap it out. And the swapping it out is done simply by pivoting. It's not a bypass. It is simply a recognition of what's going on and the ability to bring a counterbalance in to restore balance. So in a work environment, I teach people to identify if this is what's going on in my life right now is affecting me when I'm on the job. So am I inside myself when I should be outside paying attention to the meeting? Am I thinking about the phone call I just got? Or am I present with what every word that person just said? And that is sort of very, very basic. That works from support staff all the way through to partners at the world's top law firm. Is it in me or out of me? And then the other 2 dimensions are, is it big or is it small? So I teach people to immediately check in with their breath. It starts with breath awareness. And they all want to know how to take apart opposing counsel or the other side of the business negotiation. Yeah, I want to do that. I want to read breath like blockchain. I'm like, great, close your eyes and go inward. So we begin on a voyage of discovery that doesn't involve quote unquote spiritual principles. It starts with the energetic. Because if it's spiritual, then it's true. We don't need to point it out. We just go to the truth and find the application. So they always have a desired outcome. What's your desired outcome? Okay, great. Get that. We all know that people come to us for a reason that may or may not be related to what's really going on in the need for healing, or whatever we want to call that. So I listen to what they want, and then I read the person in their breath. And if you can read the person in their breath, you can see the metaphors. Where are they holding? Is it high and tight? And if I know my breath and your breath, and I've learned about, there's only so many places in the body a human being can hold things, then it becomes combinations of holding and thoughts and ideas. And so I look at it as an artist, and I sit there and I go, okay, great. You're feeling this. You want to do that. How do you need to feel? And then we begin to very quickly, in 4 sessions, 45 minutes over a month, radically realign felt sensation in the body. So they now walk into the room feeling like who they want to be. They're completely disengaged up here. The full felt sense of who or what they want is now present. And when you could do that, whether you're a secretary, an assistant, or a director, or a chief of, or a partner in, or a rock star who's got 50 million people watching, and if you mess up the note, it's news the next day. All of that sort of pressure comes down to how I feel in the moment. I learned how to do it feeling. I do amazing things feeling technically awful much of the time. And I've just found a new way to do that. So that is applicable from the bedroom to the boardroom. And I'm lucky to get to give that to some very interesting people who notice the difference like that and then run with it and feed back to me.
So that's awesome. Like, actually, a lot of the people listening to this are probably breathwork practitioners and facilitators, and maybe even looking to work with corporations. So can you tell me a bit about that journey? Like, how do you get corporate clients? What's it like working with them? And,
Yeah, that's interesting for me. Can I be honest with you? My system of neuroacrobatics is feminine. It's magnetic. That looks very lazy and crazy in the Western world, where you're supposed to be masculine, electric, not magnetic, out there forcing, thrusting, and doing, and making, and pulling. The system I have, the Systema system and the faith system and the entire way that I do in subtlety is feminine. So I haven't ever solicited a single corporate client. They cold call me, and I make it really difficult to get a hold of me. And so somebody hears about me from somebody, and I usually get a straight email through sageraider.com, and they will reach out, cold call. I'll have no idea who or what they are. I approach them the way I do everything, and I end up with some very large clients. So I've been fortunate. I probably could extrapolate and sell or give or... But I'd be selling a course no one wants to hear. Sit there and think and breathe about it, the felt sense of gratitude, embodying how incredible it is to be yourself, and wait. Push things around, do things in the physical, but the most of the work is in relaxing and magnetism. The power of the subtle and the magnetic is everything. So I prepare for and I live a lifestyle commensurate to the ability to show up for the 1% of the 1%. Billionaires on big boats, world's top anything. But I live that way, and I discipline myself daily. So I would say you are only capable as a breath worker of healing those that have healed to the level that you've healed. You're not going to be able to do anything for anyone else that you haven't done yourself. So if you want to get into corporate, if you want to get into high impact, high dollar, high stakes, high pressure, anything, begin to live your life in those moments of high pressure and begin to relish them, begin to enjoy them, begin to lean into every single space of failure and discomfort that you have, because the success you crave will test that. My life routinely falls apart, quote unquote, as it rebuilds itself, meaning the way I get to do what I do is through a series of tear and repair cycles that to the average human don't look tenable or enjoyable. But what I've learned is to surrender in the cycle. So you want to surf a 50-foot monster wave? Guess what? You're going to fall off a 50-foot monster wave a lot. Prepare for falling off a 50-foot monster wave, because you're going to stare at humans who can eat you. Let me say that again. If you want to step into the arena that I'm in, you will be in the room with living tigers, men, women, and everything in between that can destroy you, because I can't lawyer up against the clients that I work with. There's no way. It's all on a handshake. There's no non-disclosure agreements. There is none of that. They don't want it. All your smells and bells and whistles, all the stuff you picked up on a seminar, throw it out the window. Go breathe by yourself when you're in pain, when you're lonely, when you've lost everything, when you've lost everyone, when everybody thinks you're a piece of crap and it wasn't your fault. Truly sit with injustice, sit with pain, sit with all of it, and find God at the bottom of the exhale. Then find whatever you can find, man. If you're a heroin addict, pooping your pants and shaking right now, listen to this. Please play that for somebody. I've beat opioids multiple times. It's okay. You can wipe your pants. They make new pants. It's okay. You're okay. If it hurts so bad you can't do it, it's okay. If nobody understands you, it's okay. I'm here breathing 1% of the 1%, and that affords me the ability to spend time with people who are dying. And they are all the same. So if you're a breath worker who wants to get fancy, just know that there might be an ass whooping somewhere in there you hadn't imagined that you were asking for when you were asking for big things. So just live your life and prepare as though you were going to the Super Bowl every day. Don't do it seriously. Do it to the best of your ability, your very nearest duty to the very best of your ability, and trust that your system you've developed in your breath with your God will be resilient enough in the moment of need, whether it's a royal family or a rock star or a gangster staring at you across the table saying, "What do you got, breath person? I need help. I need healing. I've heard you got something. What do you got?" It's not me. It's not you. It's not in that moment. It's all the life I've ever lived, good, bad, ugly, or indifferent. And what I know, not what I believe, not what I feel, what I know in my breath. And then you give them the work you've done that day. Give your clients the work you've done that day. If you haven't done the work, please stop talking. If you haven't done it that day, you're giving them yesterday's daily bread. And in the Hebrew scriptures, that's manna. That goes maggoty bread today, like 24 cycle, 24 hours. What's today's breath? What's today's love? What's today's? And if I don't have any, and boy, do I not some days, Niraj. Whew. But I don't put myself in a position where for a job, I'm grinding out 10 humans a day. And on a day when life happens, I just don't have it and I'm faking the funk. You can only do that till your system as a breath worker will collapse. That's a long-winded answer, and it didn't really answer. I have a system that's magnetic, it's feminine, it allows, it surrenders, and it attracts the world's top everything. So if you really want to do it, come follow me, come live my life with me. That's all I tell people. Yeah, take the class. Yeah, sure. Listen to the music. Come find me and follow me. Watch where I fail. Go take that, model it out, and bring it back and teach that class, because I can't teach them all.
I like that. And actually, I think people can resonate with that, me included, that it's your story and the falls you've gone through that really shape you and make you. So you've also managed to magnetically attract quite a bit of PR for yourself, which is pretty epic as well. Like being in the New York Times, you've been on the BBC, PBS, ITV, Sirius, which is the radio station, I think, and even in a competition with the Sundance Film
Yeah, I was
Festival.
in grand jury competition. I accidentally did a movie and we ended up accidentally in competition for the grand jury prize, Sundance 2000. It's called Beyond the Ocean. And nobody knows that because I don't even it's totally, but you can go on YouTube and watch it and see me with lots of hair at 20 something years old. And I got lucky, dude. Everything I did, I got right to the top and I didn't appreciate it young. I was cocky, I was arrogant, and I still struggle with both of those defects of character, man. When it comes easy, you get tempted to think it's you sometimes. So the universe, my God, said, "Oh, really? Let's give him a little smackdown." I believe there's balance. I don't believe there's a God a universal God that does evil shit to people to teach them lessons. I believe there's universal order of balance. So if you burn too hot in one area, and your character doesn't match your gifting, the universe is going to give you an opportunity to balance that character and gifting out. So here I am with a heavy dose of beatdown, And some days I'm short on love and long on pride. Boy, are those the days, the day before I end up on my knees, physiologically, I mean, on my knees with my physical stuff that I deal with, giggling at myself for the day before and really glad that the world didn't see me either. You know what I mean? I wasn't on air that day, that I was low on love and high on arrogance or pride. And there I am on the floor again. And so I'm inviting people into that cycle, man, because that's it. That's breath right there. Inhale, exhale. Not every one of them are good breaths. Ideal model breaths.
Epic, man. So what a story. Well, I also love the fact you're a musician, man. So tell me more about how you're using music with the breath.
Consciousness is like electronic music production. You can appreciate that, right? You get a clean signal. For those of you listening, you get a clean signal. The difference between electronic music production and analog is that analog, you have to have a bunch of hardware. There's actually gearboxes and things. When you get into software, you can create sounds through combining, we call them effects or plugins, but they're just layers of processing to a single signal. Synthesizers were just that, electronic synthesis. You patch one plug in and one plug out. That is a model. That is a metaphor for consciousness. And in my class, I'll take people through a screenshot of Ableton Live, and I'll say, this is a clean signal that's into my brain. And then I have what's called the thought about a thing chain. I teach this in neuroacrobatics. A thing happens. Then I have a thought about a thing. And very quickly, I have a feeling about a thought about a thing. So I've got a lump. Oh, that's information. Ooh, I wonder if it's cancer. And then, oh my God, if it's cancer, I'm going to miss Aunt Mary's party. Oh man, Aunt Mary hates me anyway because I always miss all her stuff. Now, a lump just precipitated that's electronic signals. So now I've got a clean signal. That's a thing. Now I've got a thought about a thing, then a feeling about a thought about a thing. And you know that if you just keep adding layers of signal and sound, some of those, when tuned intentionally, work really well. Some of them work really, really well, and we call that a happy accident. But generally, just adding layers of feelings and thoughts to a clean signal without knowing consciously and being able to tune, detune, the granularity. Those of you who are musicians, think about a rack system in a studio. And people and consciousness signals are clean or not. And so we're either cleaning them up to a pure signal and getting some of the thoughts and feelings and other stuff and noise that's in the way out of the way, or maybe they're coming very, very clean and they're looking for a new expansion. So as a producer, you're like, am I taking away or am I adding? And so as a consciousness curator in neuroacrobatics, this is different than breath work. I'm not just doing the divine opening up, and there's a lot of stuff that happens. And I am like, yes, and it's exclusive. It's not always correct. And my spiritual baggage has no place in the benefit of breath. So I'm trying to use Western metaphors, Western ideas, and music production's perfect because we get a signal in consciousness, and how we process that signal ends up creating something that's either very, very, very beneficial and beautiful, or something that creates dissonance and disharmony, dysregulation. Do you relate to that? I mean, you're a producer.
For sure, man. Yeah, mate, it's a good analogy. I like it. So consciousness is definitely very akin to electronic music and the way signals come together. So yeah, agreed. But I'd love to know also what you're using to produce this music, because you're a multi-talented musician actually. So what's your style with music? Do you produce all your own music? Do you use other people's music? Do you play over the top when you do sessions? Tell me through a session that you'd give.
A session I'd give. So what you can't really see here, this little blanket's laying on a sound table. It's called a vibe bed. So I compose sounds and ultimately songs for people into people. And I compose in a frequency that is unique to me. A lot of people know that A440 is not perhaps a beneficial tone. I don't want to get into the esoteric of sound waves, etc. But everybody tunes to their A note is 440 hertz. So I tune a little bit differently. And so I compose and create, and I put it into the person. So as they're experiencing sound and vibration, they're being cued to breathe. And then we will go through a series of circuits, and where they're at and what they need will reveal itself to me in their breath. And so we will, similarly to that Dope Frog track, start with and create a journey. And the music will come and go. And I don't always have a playlist planned. It's more like being a DJ and curating consciousness. And you can see where the person's at, and you can observe and feel energetically. So I can put my hands on them and do a traditional hands-on one-on-one breath session. And then we can jump out. I call it in the box and out of the box. So we start very much hands-on. Then we go back into the machine, into the Hollywood Squares box, right? And then we move back in. So that's the anatomy of a session.
But you do this all at home? People come to your place? And
yeah, so they do it here. And then I do it also on Breath Church. I started Breath Church just as pandemic was going. And so, yeah, it's online as well. I actually really enjoy it online. So Breath Church is a free place to practice neuroacrobatics. So it's on Insight Timer right now. I'm doing it in partnership, launching on Thanksgiving. So by the time this airs, you just look for it on Insight Timer. And once a month, you can come together in community. I created it to practice. I didn't know what neuroacrobatics was at the time. I just knew I had this really fun thing. So I put it out there, and I didn't use a ClickFunnels, and I didn't have it in me to, during the COVID experience, try to build a massive thing. So there was a lot of PR around me, and a lot of things were coming out. And I was really just interested in taking care of myself, going through a really painful period that I was in, and then using that plus all the other stuff I'd been through to give freely to the world. What happened was something really beautiful. I took a break because I needed to, and now I'm going to bring it back from this kind of new place with some new music and a new style. So Breath Church is where you go to practice. Neuroacrobatics is this educational process. Here's what we do. Here's how we do it. Here's how to apply it in the real world. Breath Church is just straight, come in free form, freestyle. I'm going to say some stuff, but you breathe how you want. There's a bunch of people all breathing in the same way at the same time for the same reason. We ended up sharing the same thoughts. So it's a place to come and really belong. And I think the tagline I have there is just breathe to belong.
Nice. You know? And it's an online.
Online, yeah. It's you can find it on insighttimer.com, and they've got a breathwork challenge moving on. And so I'm doing stuff in conjunction with them. That's the home for now. And then I'm doing it live. I'm going to take it out on the road. And that's where the Cirque du Soleil kind of comes in. There's just a live, I put on a sequin jacket, man. It needs to be glitter and boas and all sorts of magic and entertainment. And again, the poetry and the spectacle of breath and music in the body as a felt sense.
So that's super cool, man. I love it. And maybe we'll do some live stuff together when we do our festivals in person. But just to keep it even more practical, like if someone suffered from chronic pain right now, how would they apply some of your techniques?
That's a great question. That's my favorite question. Okay, so I right now live with mind-blowing sensation. I've got a nerve on my right side compressing. I've had drop foot since April. So I woke up this morning, and every step, first step of the day, all the way to the last step of the day is like on razor blades. So I go there and I draw my attention immediately with the inhale. And so leaning into, remember, you want to go big leagues, lean into discomfort, big leagues, lean into the place that hurts most. I lean into the felt sensation of what's going on in my foot, and I begin to breathe consciously per the Systema idea. We breathe in through and out of different body parts. So I begin to breathe into my foot and out from my foot, and I begin to talk to my foot. And then I begin to talk to the nerve and the sensation in my back. And so in the nose, out the nose is incredibly powerful. And that's just a long, delicious, slow. If you don't know what Ujjayi is, and you hear me saying this over and over and over, it's this Darth Vader sound that you can make by imagining you're fogging a mirror. Then you simply seal your lips, and it's easier to do on the exhale than on the inhale. But that's how I practice that. And so you simply go long nose in, long nose out, long nose in, long nose out, and you can begin to observe sensation. You can allow the sensation to build. Pressure in the system will look like something. It will feel like something. Assign something. Notice how it feels. And then the first thing that you need to do is rename your pain. Stop calling it pain. You could breathe all you want into it, but the same breath with a different thought's a different breath. So it doesn't matter how you breathe. It matters how you breathe and think, how you feel about the pain. So if someone's in massive chronic pain, breathing into the space, identifying sadness, anger, rage. I'm pissed off that I have to deal with this. Okay, great. There's anger. What's under that? Oh, I'm sad that my foot doesn't work and it hurts. Okay, I've got to keep going. Life doesn't care. Can I breathe the opposite of sad? Can I breathe kindness? Can I breathe something that I would breathe into a 5-year-old with the flu who had to go to kindergarten? And can I breathe into my foot the kind of love and compassion that I would to a small child that had to go to work and didn't like it? Had to go to school and didn't want to. See, it's all metaphor. The breath is not the thing. It's not shapes and numbers and wrestle the pain down or let's get woo and lean in with white light. We don't have time, man. I got to get to the toilet to pee. I have 12 steps to get there. The first one is already a day ender. So if you relate to that, if you have that kind of chronic whatever in your system, this is a way of actually thinking and breathing like a kid. There's such joy and wonder. It is actually a festival. But who wants to throw a festival? We want Burning Man. We want Lollapalooza. We want Cool Festival. We don't want a festival of really the uncomfortable sensation in my body. But if that's what is, how do I take what is, get joyful quick, and then get functional? So then you can open up blowholes. You can do balloons. Once you've made friends with and leaned in, you've got a color, you've got a taste, a texture. You can identify it. You've got a metaphor. You've stopped calling it pain and you've called it maybe your Auntie Ethel or your boss, Bob. Name it after your boss. Man, Bob's acting up. Bob is really screaming. Or my Auntie Ethel is yelling like a fire truck that can't hold its ladder, man. She's screaming today. Start to make a joke out of it. Now you're smiling. You see that? Now we've just communicated because in your description, dear sufferer of chronic discomfort, in your description lies your affirmation. Start to describe your pain in a way that's funny and an inside joke to you and everyone around you. Now you have a common bond around pain that's not suffering. Breathe that. Bring people in. Ooh, let's breathe the Auntie Ethel breath. Or Auntie Ethel's woo. I'll teach you 3 basic breaths, 4 dimensions of awareness, 7 mental laws, and a whole bunch of core principles in neuroacrobatics that'll help you flip that sensation no matter what it is. And even if you don't have chronic pain, you just got chronic crushing it syndrome. Too much good is the same as too much bad in the system. I got a breath and a thought for that too. So especially if you're in pain, know that I love you. Know that you're in the right place. Know that there's no sensation in the body that your breath and your brain, the human cell is the B3 axis. We didn't talk about that, but the breath-brain-body axis is the human cell. So your cell is intelligent. If you could talk to your cells with your breath and a metaphor, your cell is going to get it. Your cell's going to learn. And cells replicate, don't they, Niraj? A healthy human cell is a healthy human cell. If we create epigenetically, which means through our thoughts, we can upregulate aspects of our genetics and our being, we make one healthy cell. That thing will replicate with joy. So pain doesn't become pleasure and all these words that we use that are spiritual. Pain just becomes something I can work with when I need it. Because life ain't quitting. Spirituality that isn't applicable ain't spiritual. There's no such thing as undemonstrated spiritual knowledge. So let's get creative. Let's make some beats. Let's make some poetry. I heard you had Tom Granger on there, man. I love that. Just draw breath. Let's create festivals that turn suffering and misery not into something we bypass, positive vibes only. Let's get magnetic. Let's get feminine. Let's sit in it until it resolves. And let's use it like glitter, like construction paper, like plain old macaroni, and some glue. And let's make macaroni cards out of ordinary life. Let's make beautiful metaphors out of the non-metaphorical, the mundane. Thanks for sharing this time with me, man. Thanks for everything. Appreciate
the time's gone past pretty quick. So as we are at the end of this, how do people find out more about neuroacrobatics, Breath Church? Like, where do they find more about Sage Raider?
Well, you can go to neuroacrobatics.com. You've got the first course with Dr. Peter Litchfield's Professional School of Behavioral Health Sciences. I just taught the course there. Some very bright minds in that room. That was a fun course. And we were able to get that done and out. It's up for sale, neuroacrobatics.com. And there's a bunch of other breath, brain, body packs, music, and other stuff you can find there. Insight Timer, if you're already on it, you can look for me there. And then sageraider.com, breathchurch.com. They will all take you to Sage Raider, where there's different places. And just know that I have a heart for people in pain. And for me, that starts and ends with my own physical felt sensation in my body, living what I say with integrity, whether I'm on a big boat with a billionaire or whether I'm sitting in intensive care myself or breathing with a stage 4 cancer patient. Your breath is always with you. Your breath is ever present. And the biggest thing you'll ever do is breathe yourself into a state of health and healing and wellness. So don't look at me. Look at yourself. Please come join me. That's what neuroacrobatics is. Neuroacrobatics.com, sageraider.com, and breathchurch.com. I'll be out there and I'll be looking for you.
Beautiful, brother. Amazing. Well, well done on your success and turning so much pain into so much passion. All right, bro.
Thank you.
Peace.